Hi everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome to my channel. It is Wednesday, which means that it is time to do Teen Mom OG recap. Yes, the show is still on the air. It's been a million years, and this season has been, I don't know, you guys. I feel like it's kind of boring. Maybe that's just me, but I don't know if you're tuning in, and if you're not, I'll try to make this as entertaining as possible. This week's episode was called It's Time to Talk, and it is season something, episode millionth. And I think it's episode 22, season 8. And Macy, it starts out actually with Macy and Taylor sitting down in their living room while Bentley is at school, and they're talking about how Bentley is starting middle school and that he has a girlfriend, and Bentley's girlfriend was apparently talking bad about him, which he then asked her about, and then Bentley proceeded to break up with her when the girlfriend admitted that she did talk badly about him, which is apparently a good job for Bentley. Way to hold your own, Bent. And then so she's sitting down with Taylor, telling him about what happened, and Taylor's like lamenting or reminiscing about how Bentley has grown up so fast. And Macy asks Taylor to talk with him about, girl stuff, not like full birds on bees, but she wants him to sort of talk with him about, being nice to girls and girls being nice to him and being respectful and all that good stuff. And Taylor's all like, well, I know where the stork, well, like, I know where my kids came from. They came from the stork. And then, like, she's like telling him, like, oh, he already knows about the hoo-ha and the peeper. And so you don't really need to tell him about that. Just like teach him how to treat girls and boys or boys. And if he wants to date a boy or girl, that's fine, and it was kind of a cute conversation. A little bit, she kept mentioning boys or girls like repeatedly, so it was actually nice to hear that. Her point for Taylor to talk with him was that she wants him to understand like all of this now because of the statistics that show that children born to teen parents have a higher probability of having a child as a teenager themselves. She even shares that her mother was a teen mom, and so she then became a teen mom, and she doesn't want to repeat those patterns with Bentley. Taylor agrees to talk with them, and he says they'll play some ball and have a little talk. All right, on to Caitlin. She's with Tyler at home making Veda food, and she's talking about how she's really gotten into making her own food for Veda after she had read about all the heavy metals that are in pre-made foods for children, which, by the way, you should check out all of that from the FDA and the CDC, because all of those metals that are in those foods are naturally occurring, and you can balance it out by having a balanced diet. But check it out at the net, like check it out through the actual like FDA, CDC. She's maybe not so informed about this, but anyways, back to the matter at hand. She's talking about how she's going to work with a natural food company because she wants her babies to have all organic, non-GMO food, which again, I'm not going to go there. She said that this company called Little Spoon wants to work with her, and she says they cater the baby's food to what you need. The co-founder and marketing director had reached out to her, and so of course Caitlin's in her kitchen getting her hair and makeup done, even though she's not in New York. I'm not sure why she was getting her hair and makeup done for this specific part, because it didn't appear like she was doing anything, but I don't know. And like she says that they asked her to come to New York, and like she and Tyler are going to go, and her mom April is going to watch the kids. So that's the fourth time she's left her kids this season. You guys, she's always so busy. Some of you in comments are always like, oh, another opportunity for her leave. And then others are like, but she travels for work. Well, so far she's done a trip, 3 leisure trips. One was to see Amber, right? Which is that work? Well, it's for teen mom, but whatever. So she's going to try to she says that making food is super time consuming. So maybe if she works with this company, she can do something good with her platform. All right, so then on to Cheyenne. Cheyenne is talking about Ryder getting out of the hospital. If you remember last week, Ryder was in the hospital because she had a fever and she was throwing up. She's talking to her sister about how she didn't tell Corey about Ryder being ill and that he's coming home from the challenge, and that she thinks that he might be upset with her when he finds out what happened because she didn't tell him that he was in the hospital. But she says that she didn't want to tell him because she didn't want to screw up his time there or distract him. And she says that the doctors, after she brought her back after that first day, they were super happy she came back because her glucose was in the 60s, which is low. That's good job, mama. And she says when he gets his phone back from the producers, he's probably going to be upset because she asked the producers to talk to him and sort of tell him what happened so that he doesn't walk into sort of a blindsided mess. And she actually sort of reflects on the fact that she and Corey made a mistake about not deciding what they were going to do if something like this happened. They didn't discuss if she was supposed to call him or if she wasn't supposed to call him. And she's just really sort of like conflicted about if she made the right choice. But she says that she kept in contact with his family, with the producers, with Taylor. So everyone around him knew what was going on, and everyone agreed not to bother him. And because she's still a little bit not feeling good, they are keeping her home so she doesn't relapse. And Corey, she really hopes that Corey understands. So I'm not sure about this. Like, part of me is like, you should have told him. I don't know. As a parent, I would be upset. Part of me is like, you don't want to distract him. But the other part is like, well, it's still your kid and they're still in the hospital. And anytime a child is hospitalized, like, that's kind of a big deal. But if your child is chronically ill and hospitalizations are a part of life, do you always have to do that? It's hard. I can totally empathize with her. That's the life I live. Okay. On to Amber. Amber is so boring this season, and I'm so tired of her, you guys, because she's sitting there on her couch again. Like, and this is kind of the most concerning part of this episode, because she's sitting there like talking about how, you know, Dimitri passed the lie detector test, because that's a super rational thing for you to put through a new boyfriend, and they're totally not reliable. And she's talking about how, you know, she still doesn't really trust him, and she can feel herself kind of pushing back and not trusting him because of what she's been through. And so it cuts to like Gary proposing to her and then fighting with Gary, and then Matt proposing to her and then fighting with Matt. So it cuts to like Andrew and her talking about getting married and how he's picked out a place, and that, like, you know, and then it has her like in the car with him last season. Remember when they were fighting about like an airplane flying overhead, and she's like, your jokes are not appreciated, you know, like that. And she says like she had a hard childhood and she's still working through it. So, you know, the producer asks her, like, have you talked to him about your diagnosis and, like, what your diagnosis and, like, what it's, like, all about? And, you know, she says that she went online and she showed him, like, all the information about bipolar 2, about borderline personality disorder, about anxiety, PTSD. And she said that, you know, when she showed it to him with the translator up, she thinks he understood it better. And, you know, she's just like, you know, sometimes you just have to be gentle with me. And he's like, and she's like, and I have to be gentle with you too. It felt like something might have already happened that they're just not talking about, because it's weird that they're having this conversation where they're already having a conversation about her behavior. You know what I mean? Like, this is why I think this relationship is not a good idea. I mean, you have done nothing to deal with this trauma. And you're 29, 30 years old. You just turned 30 years old last week, Amber. Like, at some point you have to just sort of stop and just take care of yourself and stop putting your energy into a man and focusing that time and energy on healing yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be 40 or 50 or 60 still dealing with these same issues. And, you know, he says that he tries to be gentle with her. And she's like, well, I try too. I try to understand. It just seems tense and weird. It really did. I wasn't the only one, because some of my subscribers sent me a message and they said, did you think that interaction between her and Dimitri was weird? And I said, oh, 100%. And we know her history. Okay, so Mackenzie is talking to Josh. They are talking about Gannon. She's worried about Gannon because she says that Gannon has been showing signs that he is struggling with the death of Angie, and that he maybe not be dealing with the emotions that he's feeling. She said that he has been crying a lot, and that, you know, he'll wipe tears away, but then he won't tell her what's going on. He went over to a sleepover, and then at 11 o'clock that night, the mother had to drop him back off at home, and he wouldn't really talk about it. And that even her dad had admitted that, you know, Gannon has been talking to him about it and is the only one that's not talking to him about it. And so she's worried that he's not dealing with his feelings, and she wants him to feel like he can talk to her. And Josh is just like, now, if you've been watching the Teen Mom OG, like, gossip, y'all know that, like, Mackenzie yesterday literally accused him of cheating on her with her cousin Angie. That's right. So apparently during all of this, he's acting aloof, and it's because she says he's cheating on her with Angie, and they are done. Yikes. I feel so bad for Mackenzie. She does not deserve that. Okay, now to Caitlin and Tyler. They are in New York at this they're at a fancy place. And anytime Tyler and Caitlin talk, Tyler is so intense about everything. Like, he's always yelling about things. He's always like, this is great. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to be on the other end of a conversation with him, because he is always so intensely talking. Anyways, they're in New York and they're talking about this little food company, and that she's going to talk to them about, what she wants to do. And, she's scared because she's never done this, and she's nervous, and she wants to work with the company that she feels passionate about. And then Tyler's like, I want you to feel comfortable. And then she's like, but it's nerve-wracking, because, like, what if it's a lot of work and it's too much? Because she's always literally talking herself out of things. And she's like, bottom line, like, they start talking about kids and like, bottom line, you want your kids to be healthy. It's on every parent's mind. Like, we want our kids to, like, eat healthy, and what are you feeding them? And it sets their brain development. And then Caitlin's like, yeah, the first 1,000 days of their lives are the most important for their brain. And he's like, we could spread education and educate and spread knowledge and let moms help mother moms. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, you can use a mom to tell you about, like, all of this stuff. But Caitlin, you don't have any education in nutrition. You don't have any education in, like, diet or any of that. Like, we as moms can help other moms, but we're not experts. So in the one breath, like, I always see her wanting to do things, but then being completely outside of the scope of her knowledge. Being a mom is one thing. Being a nutritionist, dietitian that can expertly speak to you and say, this is why you should do this, is important when we talk about these things. Moms we can give each other best practices, but we also have a tendency to give each other misinformation. All right, so over to Ryan and Mac. They are sitting there talking about how Bentley broke up with his girlfriend, and he seemed really upset. And Ryan's like, you're in 5th grade, dude. It's not that big of a deal. I think he's like, and then he's like, I think he's going to be one of those guys that, like, boo-hoo cries about everything. And he's going to be like one of those guys that girls will break up with just to see him cry. And Mac's just like, well, I'm just happy to see, like, he's living the single life again. And that's as much as we see of Ryan this episode. And then we're over at Taylor and Bentley playing ping pong. And they're talking about, did you kiss your friend? No. Did you get another girlfriend yet? No. Are you going to stay single? Yes. And then Taylor's like, well, you're getting older and your girlfriends will be more serious. And, your mom's mentioned to you before that you need to treat women with respect, and you need to make sure that you're being shown the same respect back. And well, this was a great conversation. It was so high level that I felt like there was, like, maybe this is how it was edited, but it's like, can you show examples of what it's appropriate to be respectful? Like, what are appropriate things for people to do that show you being respectful, and what's appropriate for you to be respectful? As well as, like, part of me was like, as much as I think it's great that Taylor's doing this, shouldn't we also be including Ryan in these conversations, since he's the father? I know they don't like Ryan, and I know they think Ryan's a terrible person, but I also feel like you need to try to give Ryan a chance to also be a father. That was just my opinion. I mean, I feel like Taylor did a good job, but it was just so high level, and I don't even know if they left stuff out on the cutting room floor, but he really didn't tell him anything. He was basically just like, all right, so if things happen, just, like, talk to your mom, and if you need to talk to your mom about something and you don't know what to say, you can come talk to me. And then they play ping pong, and the whole time, poor Bentley's like, okay. Can you imagine being Bentley and having to have these kinds of conversations on camera? That would bother me. I would not want my kid to have these kinds of those conversations are embarrassing as a kid, and then to have it filmed. This is the part of the reality TV world I don't like. Okay. Back to Amber. She's in the car with Dimitri, and they're driving to see her psychologist who works with kids, but is also, just kidding. Well, no, he does, but works with her as well. And according to Andrew, she, like, wants to work through her past traumas, and the way that she feels for Dimitri, she feels completely different. She says this with every guy. Every guy, it's totally different. It's way better. I mean, she was saying that Andrew was the best guy in the entire world. He was so much different. He was stable. He was so much better than all the other guys, and it's such a relief that she's got him. But she doesn't know if she can fall in love with him because, she's holding back. She wants to be happy, but she's scared, and she's going to have to, she's scared she's going to get hurt. She wants to work through this stuff, but she's starting to trust, but I'm scared, baby. Poor Dimitri's just like, Imagine walking into a brand new relationship, which, by the way, guy, why are you trying to get involved with this chick? I don't believe that this isn't because you're thirsty. First off, you found her through Teen Mom. You slid into her DMs. I call BS that this is genuine because honestly, why would you be in her DMs if you didn't know her from Teen Mom? No other reason. None. So, Amber, you gotta stop meeting these guys through Teen Mom. That's it. Like, you're going to just keep repeating the pattern. And if you have to keep working through trauma, you're not working on yourself. Just be single. You can't put this on your partner. You can't make this your partner's responsibility. And then when you blow up, just being like, well, that's just the problem. I haven't dealt with it. All right. Now, Cheyenne and Ryder, which, by the way, Ryder is my new favorite child this season. She is the cutest little girl ever. They are on their way home. Corey's on his way home from the challenge. They're making signs for him that say, like, show us the money. And they're like, do you know where your daddy is? He's been on the airplane forever. It was so cute. I love Ryder so much. Taylor's at the airport and she's like, picking him up. She's super nervous to get them. And then they look at her like cute little tummy and she's really pregnant. And he's like, let's go see Ryder. And then they're in the car and Corey's like, what happened? And I heard about the hospital, and then I didn't feel good to find out after I left the challenge that she had been in the hospital, and Taylor's like, well, she was taken really good care of and everything's fine. And, Corey just looks sort of let down and doesn't look very happy with Cheyenne. On to Caitlin. She's meeting with the little spoon and she's like, I got to put my hair extensions in and get all glammed up for a business meeting. Whatever. Anyways. They just moved into this new place in New York. They have to take photos of the office. She's down to do whatever, she said. And they said that they're going to create a council who have people more involved. I feel like she walked into the situation feeling like she was going to be like on the board of directors and like executives of this company. And the company was more like, so you could like be like a parenting influencer. We get questions about parenting and, you could use your voice for that. And, answer questions about parenting. Like, what's something that you think that you could answer about? And she's like, well, I was really open about postpartum and the baby blues. And, I feel like I could, like, my fans are really receptive to that because I've gone through that, and she's like, and I've got my 3.5 million followers. And, to one point, yes, you can definitely speak to those things. Yes. So she makes a suggestion that was actually kind of cute. Like they do a before video where she's going to the store and she has to pick up the vegetables and then she has to go home and steam them and clean them and make the food and then feed her and then take care of all the kids. And then life after where she doesn't have to do any of that and she can just use the little spoon foods. And they were like, oh, I love that idea. Would you be down to film that? Like, she's like, yeah, we could totally do that. So she went from being basically on the board of directors to making a Instagram influence advertisement for them. But still, it's something, Caitlin. Way to go, way to go, way to go. And some of you guys are going to be mad at me and be like, why are you always so mean to Kate? And I'm like, because Caitlin, I don't know, man. Caitlin, she supported Amber. It's hard. It's hard for me. Back to Mackenzie. She is sitting there with Gannon in bed with Josh, talking about his emotions. She starts talking about, like, I know you're sad about grandma and it's really hard and I heard you crying. And he's like, that wasn't me. I wasn't crying. That was someone else. It was, it's not embarrassing to have your feelings. Yes, it is. And dad's like, yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Totally boning a girl behind your back, but whatever. Yeah, it is. And allegedly. And, she asks him what happened at the sleepover, like, why did you leave? Why did you feel uncomfortable? And he basically tells her, like, he had a bad feeling. He feels, like, it sounds like he feels anxious, like something bad is going to happen. And then she tells him, like, you can come to Daddy and I if you ever need to. And he's all squirrely. And he was like, I'm thirsty. Because that's what kids do. Like, when my kid doesn't want to talk, he goes, I'm so tired. And Grannon was like, I'm thirsty. That's like Q4. I'm done with this conversation, Mom and Dad. And then they start talking about how much they love him. And it's kind of cute. All right, back to Macy. So she's like, did you talk to him? How did that go? And Taylor's like, well, he was really shy. Why are you asking? Blah, 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 blah. And, he's like, well, we talked about getting respect and giving respect. And she's like, well, I'm glad you had that conversation with him. And, it's great to have that starter conversation. So, this is going to help him. And, like, Taylor talks about how they're in the new phase of parenting. And then the producer's like, don't you think you should give Brian an opportunity to have that conversation with him too? And Macy's like, no, I don't. I don't think Brian should have these conversations with Bentley at all because he wouldn't be serious and it wouldn't be right. So, okay, you guys, I know you guys hate Ryan, but part of me is just like, how do you let the guy even have a chance? If he's trying to become a parent, if he's trying to be involved and he's trying to do things, and this woman is constantly like, no, he can't talk to my son about this. No, he can't do that. No, he can't do this. No, he can't do that. Like, how do you actually how does he establish that he's a father at any point? It just, that to me just feels like icky, like give the kid give the guy a chance. He's not perfect. He's done a lot of crappy things, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I get it. There's a history, but I just, that, like, she doesn't want him to talk to him about it because he wouldn't take it seriously. And then she's like, well, I'm just glad that he has Taylor. Duly noted. All right. Amber's at her psychiatrist's office and she's like talking about how, well, I had Dimitri take a lie detector test. And at the time I was totally ecstatic because that meant that it could move to the next step in our relationship. And then her psychiatrist is like, well, do you feel like it's going to turn out like the others? And she's like, yes, maybe, I don't know. Do you feel like you're falling into the patterns that you have done so in the past? And she's like, yes. So this like makes me feel like there's things we're not talking about. I feel like they're already fighting. I feel like there's things that she's not saying. I feel like she's not, if she's already worried that things are falling into the same pattern and we know what her pattern is, and then she's talking about how she had a tough childhood and like, I didn't grow up around a lot of love and I didn't have a model for what relationships look like. And that, like, of course her psychiatrist agrees with her. And she's like, it's hard to live life when all you knew was you're a B, you're this, or you're that. And then he talks about how I'm sure growing up with an alcoholic father had a lot to do with her issues. And I know you loved him even when he was sober, even when he was drinking. And she's just like, yeah, it was just so hard. And it's like, okay, again, you're 30. You're 30 and you have 2 kids. 2 kids, Amber. And you're on this couch talking about your relationships. Not about your parenting. You're talking about your relationships. You have 2 children that you don't have custody of, and you are worried about your relationship with your psychiatrist. Why isn't her mental health professional like refocusing her? And if they're not showing us this, like, why is this what MTV is focusing on? This is what drives me crazy. Like, I want to have empathy for her and sympathy for her, but then when she's constantly putting the relationships in front of everything else and not dealing with her parenting, it's hard to take her seriously because we're literally watching a show called Teen Mom with a woman who has no kids. It's unimaginable to me. And she adds nothing to this show in so many different ways. Like, I'm getting more from the mental health aspect from Mackenzie right now than I am from Amber. So then we cut back to Mackenzie, who again, she starts talking to Josh about how she's worried that he might have anxiety, and he thinks Jaxie's the one that they've got to worry about because she's the one that's always crying, and she says no, if you bottle it up, it just comes out in an explosion, which is totally true. And maybe and then he's like, well, maybe we should see your doctor. She's like, no, doctors just put their kids on medicine, and that made me crazy. So they don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to try to talk to him. All right. Now we end with Cheyenne. Corey arrives back home. Everyone's happy to see Ryder. He's ecstatic to see Ryder. Ryder missed her daddy so much. Then he sits down and talks to her about, being in the hospital. He wants to know what was going on. And he said, like, she's like, she was lethargic. Her eyes were rolling back. It was really obvious, which if she's lethargic, rolling back, she's like probably having like low blood sugar, which, that happens because my son has hypoglycemia too. So that's not a good sign when they get to that level. Going unconscious with hypoglycemia is extremely dangerous. But he's like, oh yeah, so like asthma. And she's like, no, like he was like rolling back limp, like we were watching her breathe. I've gone through that with my son. That is so scary. So I totally feel you, Cheyenne. And then she said, she's been through a lot of tests. She's scared of everyone. And then Corey's just like, it was hard to find out by this now, but man, you're doing so much. You're really taking care of her. I'm so glad she's okay. I'm really glad that you were there for her and took care of it. You can do it all, Shy. Thank you so much. Isn't it funny? Previously this season, he told her he couldn't do it all. Now that he's had some perspective, he's like, you really can do it all. And she's just like, hey, I like this, Corey. Can you be like this all the time? And then they talk about how they have a great co-parenting relationship. These two have come very far. All right. So that was the end of the episode. So next episode, I don't even know what's going to happen. Something with Amber and Dimitri talking about getting married, and Sean shows up, Buddy shows up, or Bubba, her favorite enabler, shows up to talk about, if he's only here for a green card. And then we see, I don't even remember, Macy probably fighting with Ryan about something, and there will probably be Caitlin and Tyler talking about wanting to have a job or talking about a business and not having a business, and then maybe Cheyenne and Corey talking about a kid. Oh, gender reveal for Taylor next week, which we already know she had a baby girl, and that's it. All right, you guys, so I want to know, what are your thoughts? Is Josh a douchebag? Is Gannon having anxiety? I hope, that poor little boy. I will say that even though she doesn't want to put him on medication, she's like, having him talk about it is such an important thing to do. And I think the way that she's taking this approach as a parent is a really good, she's handling this very well. Even when she's going through her own grief, it appears as the way though it's edited. I feel like Cheyenne and Corey's relationship is moving in a good direction. I think Macy and Ryan still have a very long way to go. And I think Amber needs to stop focusing on men and start focusing on herself, taking care of herself so she can actually be a good mother. So tell me what your thoughts are. Are you with it? Are you not with it? Are you going to keep watching? Are you not watching? Are you only watching my recaps? Tell me in the comments below.